Stop. No matter what you're doing right now, stop. What I have to tell you isn't for everyone who's listening. It's specifically for you. You carry a silent battle in your mind, a constant noise, a string of intrusive thoughts that aren't yours but have moved in, like they own your peace. You've been feeling exhausted, not from what you do, but from what keeps occupying your mind without permission. Today, you're going to hear the definitive answer to that restlessness. I came here to tell you that the time for tolerating this invasion is over. By the end of this transmission, you will recognize the exact cause of this agitation that seems to smother your inner voice. You will understand the mechanism that allowed these foreign thoughts to settle into your mental field for so long. And more than that, I'm going to walk you through a revelation that will shift your stance, letting you reclaim authority over your most sacred space. This isn't a conversation about theories. It's a decree about your reality. Stay with me, because what's saved for the end is the seal you came to find. You've been feeling emotional waves that come out of nowhere, as if the sea inside you is being stirred by a wind you can't see. For weeks, maybe months, you've tried to silence that noise with effort, with logic, with willpower. But the voices of anxiety, doubt, and inadequacy keep coming back. You feel a deep fatigue, a depletion that goes beyond the body. It's a tiredness of the soul, a sense that you're carrying a weight that doesn't belong to you. Sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night, and before you even open your eyes, the thought is already there, waiting to take up your space. This isn't your fault. It isn't a character flaw. It's an occupation that needs to be undone. You've noticed that conversations that used to bring comfort now feel hollow, as if there's an invisible barrier between you and the world. That's happening because your spirit is trying to protect itself from a frequency that doesn't match your truth. Attention! You need to prepare yourself now. I have prepared material for those who doubt their own calling from God and still do not have confirmation. Are you one of the chosen? We'll give you that clarity. These are the 7 signs of the language of the calling, marks of God in the story of every chosen one, so you can reread your story and recognize the purpose sealed over you before the foundation of the world. Stop calling coincidence what is actually a calling. Stop silencing the sacred restlessness. Stop postponing the answer you feel. Your window is closing, and a chosen one who does not recognize the calling does not walk in purpose. More than 10,000 people have already read the 7 signs and received the conviction they had been seeking for years. They were just like you. They felt something no one understood. They lived in silent doubt, and they discovered it was real. And it had a name. The offer is open only this month. Access the link in the pinned comment now, before doubt steals another year from your calling. You've been searching for direction, you've been asking for a sign, and this encounter right now is the answer that traveled through time to find you. The act of typing those 3 numbers is your spirit saying yes to the liberation you've been seeking. It's your first step of agreement with what's to come. Type 888, acknowledge this alignment, and then come right back to me. What happens now is the transition from ignorance to perception. So often we become hospitable to our own pain, letting fear sit at our table, letting insecurity sleep in our bedroom, letting guilt dictate our decisions. You've been operating from a survival pattern, where your mind became a territory where any thought could enter and take root. But your mind is not a public space. It's a sanctuary, and every sanctuary needs a guardian. The pattern that has been blocking your purpose isn't a lack of ability, it's a lack of boundaries. You haven't set limits on what inhabits your mind. You allowed the external noise to become the inner voice, and this reversal is what has created that constant sense of misalignment. Think of a garden that, left untended, started being overrun by weeds. The gardener isn't to blame for the seeds the wind brought, but he is the only one responsible for deciding what stays and what gets pulled. You've been trying to prune the branches, trying to ignore the strange flowers, but the problem isn't in what grows, it's in what you allowed to settle at the root. The invader that inhabits your mind has no rights to your soil, but it thrives on your hesitation. It feeds on your doubt about your own authority. The revelation you need to embrace is this: you don't have to fight every intrusive thought individually. You just need to declare that your mind is sacred territory where certain frequencies are not allowed entry. It's an exercise in sovereignty, not effort. When you become aware that you are the owner of the house, the invader loses its power to stay. Change doesn't come from a long practice or years of study. It comes from a 1-second decision. It's the act of recognizing that what you thought was part of you is actually an unwanted guest. Let this declaration mark the moment you take responsibility for your peace. The act of typing those 3 words turns that recognition into a landmark in your story. Type "I am ready," confirm this new stance, and come right back to me. Returning to your inner sovereignty requires you to stop negotiating with the noise. Anxiety lives on negotiation. It expects you to try to explain, to justify, to understand the origin of every fear. But peace doesn't explain. Peace simply commands. The process of unlearning anxiety is an exercise in detachment. You need to become an observer of your own interior, able to identify a thought that doesn't belong to you, and with the same calm with which you close a door, tell it that it has no place here. It's unlearning the need to have control over the future, replacing it with absolute trust in your present identity. You don't need to build a wall. You only need to reaffirm who you are. In this journey, many of us got lost because we started measuring our worth by how much we suffered or how hard we fought. But true strength is not measured by resistance to weight. It's measured by the ability to let go of what isn't yours. If at any point in this conversation you felt something was confirmed in your core, let your support be your wordless amen. Not as an audience metric, but as a silent agreement between us that what was named here is the truth that sets free. It's the acknowledgement that though we were physically distant, the same clarity reached us at the same time. Look around you, mentally, at the people you know. There is someone in your life who needs to hear this call today. Someone who has been working relentlessly, but feels the doors remain locked. Someone carrying a heavy silence who seems to have forgotten how to smile from the soul. The face of that person just came to your mind, didn't it? Don't ignore that intuition. There's a purpose in that thought. Send this message to them. Don't do it out of obligation. Do it as a delivery of a burden they no longer have to carry alone. It's a form of care, an extension of the same healing you're receiving right now. We're almost at the moment of the final seal. What we've built here over the last several minutes wasn't just a conversation, it was a restoration. And to close this cycle, you're going to declare who you are. It's not a request, it's not a fragile hope. It's the confirmation that the agreement formed between the divine and your listening tonight is a covenant you will live for the rest of this season. Type slowly, feel each letter. Let your fingers do what your spirit has already accepted as truth. You are committed. You are commissioned. You are sent. You are someone who has understood that the mind is not a warehouse of fears, but a throne of purposes. You are the one who decides what enters and what stays. You are the gardener who finally took control of the soil. You are the voice that silences the noise. You are the light that doesn't allow shadows to settle. You are the clarity that replaces confusion. The cause of what you've been feeling, the reason why exhaustion seems to come from places you can't map, is not the amount of work you do or the complexity of the problems you face. The cause is a silent occupancy. You allowed thoughts, worries, and voices that have no authorization to inhabit the sacred space of your mind. You operated for years as if your consciousness were a house with open doors, where any visitor, any foreign fear, any shadow of uncertainty could walk in, sit down, and start dictating the rules of your routine. This pattern of mental occupation is what blocks your purpose. You're not exhausted because you're doing too much. You're exhausted because you're housing guests who don't pay rent and who consume the energy that should be dedicated exclusively to building your destiny. It's like trying to light a fire while someone, invisibly, throws bucket after bucket of ice water on the flame. Now imagine the picture of a garden that was once your pride. It was a place of flowers, well-kept paths, where the sunlight hit just right, and where silence was inhabited only by growing life. But over time, a seed of neglect fell onto that soil. It wasn't a great disaster, it wasn't an earthquake. It was just a small inattention. An invader, a kind of weed that disguises itself as a legitimate plant, began to sprout. It doesn't have deep roots, but it spreads across the surface, stealing the nutrients meant for your flowers. You looked at that garden, and instead of pulling the invasive weed, you tried to paint the flowers to make them look more vibrant, tried to prune yourself to make room for what shouldn't be there. You let the invader settle, let it put down shallow but firm roots that suffocate your ability to see the horizon. That invader, that intrusive thought, that constant fear of tomorrow, does not belong to your garden. It was not planted by you, nor by any higher intention that wishes you well. It was accepted by omission, by a hospitality you extended without realizing it, by an excessive kindness toward your own demons. Let the acknowledgement seal the exact place where this revelation landed. The act of typing those 3 words makes the testimony permanent in your own record of consciousness. It's not a request for permission, it's a decree of change. Type now without hesitation and return immediately to this place, to this voice, to this clarity. The solution, the remedy for this state of affairs, is not a pitched battle. You don't need to fight these thoughts, because fighting gives them the energy they seek. The solution is the return. It's a movement of unlearning anxiety, of withdrawing the authorization you granted to these unwanted guests. It's the act of realizing that you are the guardian of the gate. You don't need to expel each thought with brute force. You only need to withdraw your attention, which is the currency, the sustenance of these invaders. Imagine you are simply walking through the garden, and when you notice the presence of what isn't yours, you don't argue, you don't get upset, you just look away. You turn your gaze back to your flowers. You go back to watering what is true. You reclaim sovereignty over your inner space through indifference to what has no authority to remain. This process of unlearning the need to control the uncontrollable and returning to inhabit the present is what restores color to your world. It's a process of gentle detachment. It's the recognition that when you let go of what isn't yours, you don't lose anything. You gain yourself. You realize that your garden was always ready to bloom, but it needed your conscious presence, your firm decision about who may or may not inhabit your soil. What you are living now is the beginning of this silent reconquest, a process where your interior becomes a place of rest, not war. Every breath you take now is a sign that sovereignty is being returned, that the invader, deprived of your attention and your fear, begins to wither on its own, losing the dominion it should never have had. Feel how the weight in your shoulders starts to ease, how your breath becomes deeper, how the clarity of your purpose, which was shrouded by that fog, shines again with the intensity of a sun that never went out. You aren't creating a new reality. You're only removing what was blocking your vision from recognizing the reality that was already here, waiting only for your permission to manifest fully. And I tell you now with absolute certainty that you are not an island in this experience. If anything in this conversation confirmed what your spirit already knew, deep down where words don't reach. Let your gesture of acknowledgement be your wordless amen. It's not about a metric, a cold count, or any desire for visibility. It's about a silent agreement, a seal placed over the truth that was exposed here, a concord between what was revealed and what you accept as your new foundation. It's a gesture that says, I recognize, I receive, and I sign off on it. Let that small, silent action materialize this commitment, solidifying in you the clarity that began to form from the moment you stopped to listen. As you process this new sovereignty over your mental space, there is someone who needs to hear this truth today. You know who I'm talking about. You know someone who has worked harder than anyone around them, but sees the doors stay closed, as if there's an invisible barrier between effort and result. Think of that person who carries a silent sadness, a restlessness no one else notices, someone living an internal battle so intense that their face just appeared in your mind, vivid and urgent, while I was speaking. That person needs this message, not as casual advice or an entertainment recommendation, but as a delivery out of commitment. Send this content to them. Do it like someone handing over a key that was found by chance, but that belongs to the one who lost access to their own garden. It's a form of care, an extension of your own clarity to someone still groping in the dark, waiting for the sign you received today. Now, before we move to the close, let's consolidate everything that was awakened in these minutes. This is not about hope, and it's not about a remote possibility. It's about confirmation. Type them with full awareness that this is not a wish, but a recognition of a state already reached. It's the seal that you understand your place in the order of things, that your mind is no longer an open field for invaders, but a protected domain governed by who you truly are. Type slowly, allowing each letter to carry the strength of your decision, letting your spirit align perfectly with the affirmation you are writing with your own hands. What you are doing now is recording irrevocably that authority over your own life has returned to your hands. You are committed to the truth that now dwells within you. You are commissioned to maintain this sovereignty over your thoughts, no matter the external noise or the attempts at intrusion that will test your new stance. You are sent to walk with this clarity, to be living proof that it is possible to expel what doesn't belong to your mental house and reclaim the peace that was designed for you from the beginning. This calling isn't something you seek. It's something that seeks you, and now, through this revelation, it finds its ready vessel. Feel the gravity of these words, not as a burden, but as the weight of your own dignity being restored. You now walk under a new aegis, with the awareness that your mind is sacred ground, where only what is true and what builds up has permission to sink roots. The emptying of what was in excess is not a process of loss, but a reallocation of energy toward what truly sustains your soul. When you decide, with the firmness of one who governs their own domain, that certain thoughts no longer have authorization to occupy your mental space, you are not just cleaning the environment, you are establishing a new pattern of existence. There is a fundamental difference between the effort of fighting against what you don't want and the authority of simply withdrawing permission for what is foreign to your essence to remain. What you have lived until now, this constant battle for clarity amid the noise of concerns that weren't yours, served to strengthen your discernment. Now your mind begins to behave like a garden that, after passing through a harsh winter of neglect, finally receives the care of a gardener who knows every seed planted. It's not a superficial cleaning, but a deep reconfiguration of your inner boundaries, where you become once again the watchman who decides what enters, and above all, what stays. As you observe the repetitive patterns that once dictated your rhythm, you realize that the exhaustion wasn't from the journey, but from the excessive weight of emotional baggage you carried out of sheer inertia. This perception is the turning point. From this very second, your ability to distinguish between what is yours and what is imposed becomes your greatest tool of protection. What you feel now, this relief that arises from recognizing that sovereignty over your thought is an inalienable right, is the proof that reconnection with your deep self has already begun. Don't try to speed up the process, because the pace of your healing is dictated by the depth of your surrender. Every thought you now carefully filter is a brick you lay in the construction of a fortress where peace is not an exception but the constant rule. You are learning to unlearn the habit of worrying about what is not under your immediate control, shifting focus from the periphery to the center, where true strength resides. This transition demands courage, because the silence that follows the expulsion of what is foreign may seem like emptiness at first, but soon you will realize that this space is actually a vast possibility for renewal. You aren't destroying anything. You are only returning to the earth what should never have taken root in your fertile soil. The clarity emerging is not an accident. It is the direct result of your new stance, a stance that doesn't ask permission to be authentic and doesn't apologize for setting boundaries that guarantee your sanity. From this moment on, notice how your own breathing becomes the thermometer of your freedom. Let that recognition seal what has just been revealed. The act of recording those 3 words makes your decision a permanent landmark in your own life record. Right now, with the conviction of someone who owes no explanations to what has been expelled, and then return here to close this cycle. As you process this shift, understand that your support in this transmission needs no formulas or empty metrics. If this message confirmed what your spirit already recognized as truth, let your like be your wordless amen. It's not an indicator of reach. It's a solemn agreement that what was named here was named with precision and clarity. It's your silent concord with the movement happening now, well beneath the surface of your routine. There is someone in your inner circle, someone whose face and form just came to mind as I spoke, who desperately needs this clarity. That person who works exhausted, who carries a silence no one else notices, and who has secretly been searching for meaning in the weight they bear. Send this message to them, not as someone sharing content, but as someone delivering an emergency supply. The same provision that reached you by divine design can now reach that person through your hands. Before this time closes, I need you to reaffirm your new position in light of what has been restored. Do not do it as a hope or a request, but as a confirmation of authority. The covenant that was made between what you heard and what you decided during this time is a foundation upon which you will walk throughout this entire season. Type it out slowly, allowing your hands to confirm what your spirit has already declared as law. You are commissioned to guard the border of your own peace. You are sent to live from the sovereignty you have just claimed for yourself. At this moment, in every corner of the world, other souls are going through the same process of cleansing and restoration that you are experiencing now. You are not alone on this journey. You are part of a silent movement that needs no fanfare to be real, because its strength lies in the very essence of what has finally been returned to its rightful place. It is sealed. Attention! You need to prepare yourself now. I have prepared material for those who doubt their own calling from God and still do not have confirmation. Are you one of the chosen? We'll give you that clarity. These are the 7 signs of the language of the calling, marks of God in the story of every chosen one, so you can reread your story and recognize the purpose sealed over you before the foundation of the world. Stop calling coincidence what is actually a calling. Stop silencing the sacred restlessness. Stop postponing the answer you feel. Your window is closing, and a chosen one who does not recognize the calling does not walk in purpose. More than 10,000 people have already read the 7 signs and received the conviction they had been seeking for years. They were just like you. They felt something no one understood. They lived in silent doubt, and they discovered it was real. And it had a name. The offer is open only this month. Access the link in the pinned comment now before doubt steals another year from your calling.